part 2 of the Brian Pillman Dark Side of the Ring documentary aired last week, and it put a bow on the story that a lot of people knew, and it also introduced us to another story that many weren't familiar with, and that was that of what happened to Brian Pillman's family after he passed away. Now, just a quick review of some of the things that happened. It broke down how Brian Pillman dealt with his leg injury after a car accident. The documentary talked about how it was difficult for him to get cleared to wrestle in WWE. It talked about how it was an injury that kind of plagued him throughout his time at WWE, and how it affected his health, his mental health, and his dependency. Some would say on his substances and mostly medication. So they talk about that. They discussed the heart attack in Minneapolis he had and when he eventually passed away on the day of the Bad Blood '97 event. And then eventually his family had a lot of trouble afterwards. It was a very eye-opening, uh, uh, Dark Side of the Ring. It's very much like the. Yeah, I don't want to say like it's anyway similar because it's two different stories, but the tone of it very much reminded me of the Benoit
Yeah.
2-part series, it kind of built up like built up to this crescendo. You thought it was building up in the first part, and then like you see like this little like turning point at the end of the first part, and and honestly a lot of it was downhill in the second part. They obviously talk about Pillman's got a gun, but you could slowly tell, like, they were breaking down how the last few years of Brian Pillman's life were, and the aftermath. But what did you think about this episode? What did you think about Brian Pillman's story, and what does this mean for his legacy also?
I think a lot of Brian Pillman fans are a little at ease to a degree, and a little at and a little still a little upset because I feel like there were some things answered, but there are a lot of things unanswered. You know what I mean? And like the heart attack, because that was the if I'm not mistaken, he died right before the Gold Dust match, and
Yeah.
I remember watching that pay per view, and they said that Brian Pillman wasn't at the ring, whatever, and then like halfway through the show, which is what JR and King were actually good at, was delivering bad news. I'm not sure if that's a good thing or not, but anyway, but they were kind of good at that,
Mm-hmm.
and they said that Brian Pillman was unresponsive. They found him in his apartment building. I mean, his hotel room, and they he passed away. I remember thinking like what could have happened because I liked Brian Pillman. I won't sit here and say he was one of my favorite wrestlers because I didn't watch a lot of WCW, but at the time anyway. But I did know who he was. And I thought he was a great wrestler. I couldn't wait for him to be cleared to wrestle in WWE. And I got my wish, but I feel like what we saw of Brian Pillman wasn't Brian Pillman.
Yeah.
It was he was a shadow, you know what I mean? And I honestly think out of all his fans that this documentary hit hard. You if I don't know if anyone watched AW Dark today, but his son was wearing his dad's trunks, flying Brian Pillman
Wow.
trunk. Yeah, and they were wrestling in a tag team match today. I was watching before I got on here, and they looked good. Him and Garrison looked good. The Varsity Blondes, the Hollywood Blondes, they look good. And he was wearing this, and even Excalibur were mentioned, and Taz both mentioned that he was wearing his dad's trunks, and they also mentioned the Dark Side of the Ring documentary as well. But yeah, I mean, I think like I said before, I can't say enough about Dark Side of the Ring. I think they put a light to like sore subjects, pretty much subjects that that are not hard to talk about, especially in the wrestling industry. But they do a good job with it, and I like what they did with Brian Pillman. I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. Sad, but good. Very informative.
What Dark Side of the Ring does best is give you as close to a full picture of someone's wrestling career for good or bad or both, in a lot of cases, and get that story out there on the official record so that everybody knows the most important details of everything, and have a good background about that person's life and career. And they did it again because that's what they do. And I think that this is a documentary. This is a two-part series, whatever you want to call it, that needed to happen in order to not only like let people hear, like, who are alive now, who weren't available or didn't have the ability to see Brian Pillman in his prime, or see the potential that he had, or even know about these backstage stories. A lot of them got to see it. And that's the best part about these documentaries, because now the story of Brian Pillman, for better or worse, is out there. And like in a lot of things in life, not only wrestling, but life, it's complicated. And that's something that I think people are just starting to see. And it's good because Brian Pillman, like, we don't have to beat around the bush. He wasn't a perfect human being. Like, no one is, right? But what you can't ignore is that the dude cared about his kids like no one else. Like, he was out there doing it for his kids, and his kids talked about how no matter what, they disagreed with what his dad did here and there, but he never ever let them feel unloved. He never let them feel wanting for something. It was only after his death where they went through some financial hardships, and not my place to blame anyone for that. Not my place to really talk about that. In the documentary did that, and they can speak on that. And if you have not seen the documentary, go check it out. Like, now, it's on ViceTV.com for free. Go check it out. It's worth the watch. It's an amazing piece. And I can honestly say that Brian Pillman might be like, the biggest, like, it might be the biggest what if story in wrestling. Like, I like, man, because that gimmick was so hot. Like, if he doesn't get into that accent, that gimmick was so hot.
Oh, it was amazing. It was amazing.
My only, and it's weird because they were talking about it in the series, in the documentary, how JR was kind of like, hey, Brian, maybe you should think about switching over to announcing, or switching over to commentating, and I was like, dude, what if Brian Pillman became a manager? Oh my God.
Exactly.
Just that would have been insane. Like, you could have launched an entire different career, but it's also one of those things we'll never know, because I don't think Brian Pillman at that point especially was going to do that, because it's very similar. And again, it's unperfect example. I think it's very similar to like Daniel Bryan when he was kind of forced to retire, and he kind of fought it. He fought it for like over a year, and it was only until like he kind of came to conclusion, like it takes time to come to that conclusion, and he was just like, okay, I'm retired. It is what it is. But even then, he tried to get back. But I feel like it takes you a while once you've, especially when you just reach like that potential, and you're just like, oh my God, look the things I could do now, and then it's all kind of taken away from you. It's one of those things where you're kind of spiteful, I think, and then that's probably what Brian Pillman was facing. He was probably a little spiteful about how the hand that he was dealt in that moment. So either way, though, Brian Pillman gonna be remembered as one of the best of all time. Yeah. And like, dude, it's just like amazing wrestling. So the story of wrestling cannot be told without Brian Pillman. That much is true. Thanks for watching this video from Real Take Sports Talk. Remember to like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. Also, remember to check out our live show every single Thursday at 8 p.m. right here on the YouTube channel. And remember, keep it real.